Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
President Trump announces a new multi-billion-dollar aid package for farmers and ranchers. We'll talk with NCBA President Marty Smith about that program. Plus, insights on cattle marketing opportunities as we head into the summer.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Oxer, coming to you once again from our ranch here in Kersey, Colorado. Over the past few months, we've seen great disruption to the entire U.S. economy as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. No doubt, all of us in the entire cattle industry have felt the pressure of packing plant slowdowns and market declines that have negatively impacted the beef supply chain and our bottom lines. Through it all, we've continued our daily work, calving cows, managing health, planting crops, and doing our part to keep America well nourished. Now, as we see a lifting of the pandemic restrictions and a reopening of our economy, we turn our attention to positioning our businesses and our industry to thrive in a new and very different world. This week, we continue our team effort, bringing you timely information you can use, from policy and market updates to producer education opportunities. And later, as always, we'll have a good word from our favorite cowboy poet, Baxter Black. Turning to the news, last week, President Trump announced details of the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, which includes $16 billion in direct payments to farmers and ranchers. NCBA President Marty Smith joined other agricultural leaders at the White House as President Trump introduced the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program.
I want to begin by expressing our profound gratitude to everyone here today and the farmers and producers across the country who have kept our nation fed and nourished as we have battled the invisible enemy. It is an invisible enemy. It's tough. For this reason, my administration is launching a sweeping new initiative, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Through this effort, we are providing $19 billion to support our nation's agricultural producers, maintain the health of our critical food supply chains, and provide food assistance to American families.
And joining us now from the NCBA office in Washington, D.C. is Florida Cattleman and NCBA President Marty Smith. Marty, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin.
Tell us what brought you to Washington, D.C.?
I'm here today because of the president's announcement this morning of the CFAP program, the rolling out of that program along. And so had the opportunity to be at the White House this morning with the president, with Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue, with the announcing of that program, and then had the opportunity to speak directly to the president and to the secretary about concerns that we have in the cattle industry.
What was it like to be standing in the room as the president announced his relief plans for this country's farmers and ranchers?
It's an incredible opportunity. It's quite an honor to be able to represent America's cattlemen in anything like that, and to be there. The event was hosted in the Roosevelt Room, which is right next to the Oval Office. It's the president's conference room, and quite a historical place. One of the great things with President Trump has been the relationship that our Washington staff and that our officer group has been able to develop with him, and the fact that we are brought in to take part in ceremonies like that, and that he values our input and our opinions.
Clearly, NCBA has played a big role, and really, as we move forward, Marty, I'm curious, why do you believe it's so important to have contact and to maintain contact with all segments of the beef industry?
Well, the NCBA plays a huge role with all segments, Kevin. I mean, we're there for the cow-calf producer. We're there for the stocker, backgrounder, for the cattle feeders. And, we have the overall role of developing and improving demand for beef, both domestically and worldwide. So we take that job very seriously. At the same time, we've got to protect the interest of our ranchers and operators, producers all over the country.
So I'm curious, you're probably getting lots of phone calls and emails from producers all across the country. What are producers in the country telling you or asking you right now?
With this current program, there's a lot of questions about it. We're sitting here today in the NCBA office trying to sort through the details of this. And, it was made clear from the very start that this was a first step. This was not to be the end-all, be-all program. It's not going to make us whole. It's designed to help us through this process. But we're talking today, and we'll continue to talk about other steps that we're going to be taking. And we have been told to expect to go back to Congress for some additional funding. Certainly, there's some holes in this program that we need to flesh out, and that we need to get Congress to act on, and we'll be working on that.
So as we head from May into the summer season, is there any hope on the horizon? Yes, I certainly want us to think of some of the positive things that are going on. We are seeing the packing plants coming back closer to operational status. Understand that as of yesterday, all of the beef plants were open and we're processing cattle. We've seen throughout this we've seen tremendous demand for beef. We hear the stories of, concern out there that there may not be enough beef. And we've certainly taken major steps to make sure that America's public and the rest of the world has that access to beef. So the demand side of it is good. We've just got to keep our supply chain going and keep getting that beef in the stores. And, with the coming months, we're going to see restaurants opening back up. I mean, that's a major part of our market, and is something that we've obviously missed. So we're looking forward as we see restaurants open back, see people going back to a more normal lifestyle. There's certainly a lot of hope on the horizon with that we will get our market built back up. In the meantime, we recognize this is a tough time for every one of us out there. I mean, it's a tough time in terms of dealing with the virus. It's a tough time in terms of dealing with the economy, with the economics of beef production, at whatever segment you're involved in. Me as a cow-calf producer, I see that firsthand. I also have cattle in the feed yard right now, and this is just not the right time or right place to be. I know that. And we're doing everything we can as an organization to keep things going for all of our producers. Well, there's certainly some challenges ahead, but it is encouraging to hear the announcement today. Thank you for taking a few minutes to visit with us today, and please thank the entire staff in D.C. for all they do to represent our interests.
Thank you very much, and we'll say they have been working incredibly hard here, and recognize that we still have a lot of problems to deal with, and we will be dealing with those.
For more information on the CFAP program, including how to apply for assistance, visit our website at ncba.org. And joining us now from NCBA's Denver headquarters is NCBA CEO Colin Woodall. Colin, let's start with the announcement by the White House last week on the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Can you give us the details of that program and specifically outline how it's going to help U.S. cattle producers?
Well, it was a great honor to be personally invited by the president to be a part of the rollout of the CFAP program, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. And our president, Marty Smith, was there in the White House with the president in order to do that. It's a great program, and it recognizes that we have incurred losses throughout the COVID-19 crisis. You'll recall that this is the result of action taken by Congress through the CARES Act back 2 months ago, and it's going to be direct payments to producers. Those payments are opening up this week, and so if you need details on how to apply, go to our website and you can find out how to apply for those funds. And the hope is that this will help us get through this crisis and be able to look towards better days. Now, we have to keep in mind that this is not a perfect program. In fact, when you look at the structure of the program, You're going to get a whole lot more for your losses incurred before April 15th than after April 15th. And April 15th is nothing more than an arbitrary government date. So we're going to work with Congress to get them to fix that for us, to make sure that we can make this program as useful and helpful as possible, and also to make sure that all segments of the producer community can utilize that. Cow-calf producers, stockers, we really need to focus on their ability to capture some value here. And with that April 15th date, it's just not providing us that opportunity. It's also important to realize that this is not for packers. This is just for producers.
President Trump alluded to beef imports during the press conference. This is a hot topic, and it seems like there's a lot of discussion and confusion around this very complex issue. Can you give us the facts?
The president did talk a little bit about the import of cattle, and what we had to remind the White House is that we only import live cattle from Canada and Mexico, and we're doing that under the guise of the USMCA, which the president negotiated, and we do find a lot of value in that. But it has re-sparked the discussion of exports and imports. And that's always a complicated discussion, and one that gets a lot of people excited when you're out in the countryside. So it's important to step back a little bit and understand what exports really mean for us. There's a lot of parts of the animal that we just don't eat as Americans. We don't eat tongues. We don't eat hearts, kidneys, or livers. But there are countries that would pay a premium for that and do pay a premium for those products. And that's why trade is so important and exports are so important, because we can take products that are undervalued here in the United States and we can get a premium price paid for them in countries such as South Korea, Japan, and now China. And that is value that we capture as producers here in the United States. But you can't have exports without imports. It's the golden rule. We can't ask somebody to take our exports without expecting to take imports from other countries. But it's not a punitive agreement. We actually get a lot of value out of imports. We have a highly valued product here in the United States because of our corn finishing. And with that, when we process our cattle, we have a lot of leftover fat that is trimmed off during that processing. We can take that fat, we can bring in lean beef from other countries, we can combine that to make ground beef to satisfy a lot of the demand that we see for ground beef, and you especially see that go into food service hamburgers. So we're taking a product, our trimmed fat, that would otherwise be a waste product, and we're getting value out of it by bringing in these imports. So when you look at exports and imports, in both cases, it's us as producers that benefit.
Regarding imports, what impact could any potential change have on current or outstanding trade agreements?
You know, one of the things that we were able to talk to the president about is that if he wants to look at some of our trade deals, that it would be really good to look at the Brazilian access that they currently have to send their beef into the United States. Of course, Brazil has a problem with foot and mouth disease, and we need to make sure that all of those facilities have been inspected. It's important to remember that if you're going to export beef in the United States, those plants have to meet the exact same safety standards as the plants do here in the United States. And that product gets inspected not only in that country, but also when it gets here into the United States. But we just want a little bit more certainty from USDA that they have done their due diligence to ensure that we're not going to see foot and mouth disease come into the United States. So if the president really wants to step back and take a look at some of the trade deals, we are asking him to look at Brazil, because that's the best place where we can start this discussion to ensure that we can still have trade, but do it in a way that protects us from any sort of foreign animal disease coming back into the United States.
Can you give us an update on the status of beef processing plants, and specifically tell us, what are you hearing?
Well, as of the time that we're taping this right now, all of the beef packing plants are up and running. Now, they are running at various capacities. Some are back to 100%, some much less. But overall, we do believe that we're operating at about 75% of our total capacity. So that's a drastic improvement over where we have been. And we do expect that we will see that continue to improve day by day. And that's extremely important for us as producers because we have seen the backlog of cattle stack up in these feedlots and down into cow-calf producers who are trying to sell their cattle. We need to be able to get that flow moving again. We need to clean that out to ensure that, one, we're getting the product to our consumer, whether that is food service or in retail, and number two, to make sure that we don't have continuing costs on our side of the equation as producers, which are going to continue to just put more woe and pain into the prices that we are seeing. So it's extremely important right now that we continue to work with USDA and with the packers to get them as healthy as possible, to make sure we're taking care of those workers, because without those workers in those plants, we can't get anything done. So to take care of those workers, get us back to as much capacity in these plants as we possibly can in order to provide us opportunities to get our cattle harvested and processed, and make sure that anytime the consumer goes into the meat case here during summer grilling season, that they're always going to find beef.
Thank you, Colin, for the leadership you and your staff are providing throughout this crisis. NCBA has a critical role to play in helping the industry come together, learn from this crisis, and most importantly, position our industry for the future. Thanks for all you do. To get involved with NCBA and learn more about the policies and issues that affect your cattle business, why not become a member? There are currently great incentives for joining, including a free 2.5 liter bottle of EPRA Zero from Norbrook for all new NCBA members. To become a member, just call 866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. Still to come, we'll check out the Stocker Field Day held each fall at Kansas State University. And next, we'll review cattle marketing opportunities in the era of COVID-19. Stay with us. There's more of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen just ahead.
In the world of cattle vaccines, when you see fewer reactions, you'll notice healthier cattle and higher profits too. Because sometimes good protection is about what you don't see. Protect your productivity with cattle vaccines from Merck Animal Health. Proven to cause fewer reactions. You'll like what you see. Our trusted portfolio is just one more way Merck Animal Health works for you. Talk to your veterinarian and visit cattlefriendlyvaccines.com to learn more.
Welcome back to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Well, with the busy summer video sales season now upon us, Superior Livestock Auction would like to thank all of their hardworking consignors and buyers and representatives and, of course, industry partners as they continue to persevere through these unprecedented times. Superior Livestock President Danny Jones says they're continuing to monitor and adapt to local, state, and national restrictions, but they've decided to move forward with their complete summer auction schedule.
We've been scrambling hard and working hard to continue doing everything that we do, and we've been successful in that. We've had to make some changes in how we do business, but fortunately we've been able to continue thanks to the technology, and we've scrambled around, complied with the distancing requirements, and we've been able to keep price discovery alive on Superior's end, and we're really proud of our people for making it work, and we've been able to continue to serve our customers and keep that price discovery going.
He says at this time, Superior feels that it's in the best interest of all parties to move their June sales to their studio in the historic Fort Worth Stockyards.
We're live and moving forward with everything pretty much as planned, with the exception of as we come to each location, depending on what the rules are, and so far they haven't been relaxed enough to allow large meetings, but we are absolutely moving forward, and we're getting a good consignment. Buyer interest hasn't changed at all. We are able to pull that off from broadcast from Fort Worth. We may not be on location for some of those sales, but the price discovery continues and the auction's going just great, even though we're not able to be on site every time, and we we regret that because we enjoy coming out. But as far as the auction is concerned, it moves on and does just fine.
And Danny says they're very thankful for today's technology, which allows them to continue to operate and offer true price discovery, all while abiding by current C2C guidelines.
We're thankful for that technology and want to use it to the fullest advantage for our customers. And with these type situations, 30 years ago, it would have been much more devastating without the technology that we have. So, yeah, being able to continue and with the internet, with television, and with click to bid, and not only on the Superior Livestock side, but on the production side for our bull customers, they're able to continue to have large bidding crowds, even though they can't have a large crowd in person.
Now, to check out the complete schedule of Superior Livestock Auctions summer video sales, just visit superiorlivestock.com. Well, there's some good news in the global marketplace where U.S. beef exports set a record pace in the first 3 months of the year. In fact, the latest statistics from the USDA compiled by the U.S. Meat Export Federation show that total U.S. beef exports were valued at more than $2 billion for the first quarter of 2020, and that's up 8% from a year ago. Leading markets were Japan, Korea, and Mexico, all showing some strong gains from a year ago. Now, for more on the current cattle market situation, we turn to Dwayne Lenz with Cattle Facts. And Dwayne, we certainly saw beef exports up strongly in the first quarter of this year. How likely is this trend to continue for the remainder of 2020?
Well, thanks, Russ. Nice to join you again. It's going to ebb and flow a little bit. It's a bit of a lag on the export data that we get. The first quarter was good, as you stated. The second quarter is probably going to slow down a little bit as we get into the virus around the world. We do expect it to pick up again late third and fourth quarter. Right now for the year, we're expecting exports for beef to be up 5%. So it's going to be a good year. But here for a minute, we'll probably lag and then catch up with that later this year. Protein around the world is still going to be in demand. We've kind of forgotten about the African swine fever that we were all talking about 2 months ago. So countries that are affected by that, namely China, is going to be in the market for protein. That's going to be pork, and that should include beef as well. So prospects are quite good.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, would you give us a little update on the packing plant capacity and the backlog of cattle here of late? How close do you feel are we to beginning to work our way out of this?
We're making progress. Kills are picking up. We're not to where we were or where we want to be, but we are picking up a little bit. We're still backing cattle up. That backlog's probably going to continue into the summer. And as we get through summer and fall, we'll start working and chipping away on that backlog. But the backlog's going to remain with us more than likely through the balance of a year. But due to light placements into feed yards here over the last 60 days, we have a bit of a hole in front of us, and we use some of those cattle that we're backing up and backlogging to fill that hole. So we should be making progress late summer and fall, but we're going to have ample supplies around us here probably for the balance of the year and maybe starting 2021.
Dwayne, what about cow slaughter? With pressure on the U.S. dairy industry as well as cow-calf producers, are we in for a year where we just have an oversupply of cattle moving through the packing plants?
Russ, that's a great question. We kind of had to go back in time a little bit. If you remember coming into this year, January 2020, after 5 years of expansion, we finally leveled off the herd. Prices were down a little bit. We started to increase our slaughters. Now that's been increased this year, both on the dairy side and the beef side, especially with dairy side having a lack of profitability. So what that tells us is, yes, we'll see a bigger cow slaughter here for the next few months. Which is beef, that's hamburger, that's trimming, that's what our consumers really like. But after that, after you get into next year, a year from now, you might be actually looking at smaller supplies, especially on supplies outside of feedlots, a smaller calf crop. And that would indicate moving forward for the next few years, we could have smaller supplies, which of course should be price positive looking down the next 2 or 3 years for cow-calf, stocker, and feed yard prices.
And Dwayne, as we kind of begin to wrap things up today, as we head into the summer of 2020 with so much uncertainty, what words of encouragement are you sharing with cow-calf, stocker, and feedlot operators that you're visiting with?
Well, there's a lot of encouragement out there. It seems like we've kind of gotten through the worst of it. Fed cattle market sitting here at $1.10 to $1.20. That's feeding back into cow, calf, and stocker prices. Those have bounced off of our lows. It seems like we're kind of have seen and setting a base, and we can build from here. And, honestly, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke. It's going to be a long road. It's going to take a long time to get through this. Prices aren't probably going to be back where they were a year ago, but we're closing in that gap. It should be closer. We're really pleased at the way things are rebounding. We're moving forward. We think we're going to get through it in good shape. We're highly encouraged that we're starting to poke our heads out on the other side of it, but it's going to be a while. As far as what we're telling our folks is look for pricing opportunities this summer. If you can find a contract that works for you this fall, make a little money. Don't be hesitant to do something with it. But same time, if there's nothing out there that works, be patient with it. Watch these markets during the summer and look for opportunities, because we're getting to that stage where we're starting to build opportunities. I say we're building a base on prices, and it should be quite encouraging moving forward.
All right, Dwayne, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, and more importantly, sharing all of this great advice and also your honesty with us.
You bet. Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
To keep up with cattle market trends and challenges, just visit the website cattlefacts.com. Next on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, Kevin Ochsner reports from South Dakota on a Fed Cattle Challenge program that's meant to educate and encourage another generation of cattle feeders. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
What does it mean to be an American cattleman? It means you have what it takes where it counts, on the inside. At Ritchie, we understand that. It's what's on the inside that defines us. We share the same values: ingenuity, commitment, sense of pride. These are the values that built this country. They're the values that built this company. Ritchie, proud to be a partner to the American cattlemen since 1921.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest cattle industry organization, working every day to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen and policy updates from Beltway Beef, plus big discounts from John Deere, Cabela's, and more great partners. Join now. Call 866-233-3872 or sign up online at ncba.org.
Welcome back to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Lane Nordlund. One of the encouraging signs we've seen during this COVID-19 crisis is the way so many in the beef cattle industry have adapted to a new reality. And that includes finding ways to keep beef moving from the farmer ranch to consumers. Blondie's Butcher Shop in southern Minnesota has been innovative from the beginning, as I learned when I talked with Lindsay Fulton-Loken for the Cattlemen's Call podcast.
Everybody's been extremely overwhelmed. It's been really tough with this whole packing plant shut down. And I know many of those plants have had multiple reasons for their shutdown. And I hope just as much as everybody else, they're up and going soon. And, as far as my cattle producers, everybody, and even ones I've never heard of, are calling, can you get one in? Can you just do this? We're all running at max capacity. My situation was a little different than some of my cohort butchers. I do a ton of catering, a ton of barbecuing. So this time of year, I usually don't harvest as many animals as a lot of other lockers do. When everything kind of hit, it wiped out a good half of my business and just catering. So here I was kind of sitting there twiddling my thumbs, and all of a sudden everything just hit. People started calling, said, hey, can you get this in? And I'm like, well, we're wide open. We were able to pull a full crew back in, and we're booked out. And I know everybody else is booked out at least into next January, if not February.
Since she got her start as a butcher, Lindsay has learned how to be a bridge between producers and consumers.
Then I was introduced to the consumer and the farmer, and really found myself being a middleman and seeing how much sometimes they misunderstood each other. They were from two very different worlds. And I found myself a lot of the times being the middleman in a lot of those situations. And then you add media to it and social media and things they see and read, and then they have questions. And I found myself getting questions that I couldn't even answer.
To answer those questions, she's looked to the Minnesota Cattlemen's Association.
The Minnesota State Cattlemen's Group directed me a lot to work with the Minnesota Beef Council, University of Minnesota's Meat Science Lab Extension Group.
As Lindsay mentioned, she's become involved with the Minnesota State Cattlemen's Association and uses them as a resource. Your state cattlemen's associations work hard every day to support their members at the state capitol with resources and great educational opportunities and events. To see what your state has to offer, look them up online or go to ncba.org to view the list of state affiliates. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to the Cattlemen's Call podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Developing the next generation of cattle producers is critical to the long-term viability of the beef industry. In South Dakota, the Cattlemen's Foundation recognized a need to encourage young producers who have an interest in the cattle feeding sector. Cattlemen to Cattlemen's Kevin Auctioner has the story.
The South Dakota Cattlemen's Foundation was formed as a way to ensure the long-term viability of South Dakota's beef industry.
Well, the purpose of the South Dakota Cattlemen's Foundation is first and foremost to promote the industry and the mission of our ranchers and producers across the state of South Dakota.
Keeping the industry viable is critical not only locally for producers, but as we take a look at global beef production and the demand for our product, it's really important to have that future secured. So the mission of the foundation is really twofold, both being in education. Educating the consumer that we can have a discussion here locally with, as well as educating the next generation of beef producers in our state. And really both of those metrics we feel like are going to help ensure the viability of our industry long term. We've also have a very vibrant education committee. Those folks, we provide 5 scholarships annually, totaling $15,000 for local students. And then a new component to our education committee is the Fed Cattle Challenge, in which high school and college age students are able to actually physically own cattle in a feed yard and then compete in an educational opportunity for a cash award in that as well.
Starting the Fed Cattle Challenge was not only a way to introduce the next generation of cattle producers to the science and economics of finishing cattle through hands-on participation, but also to help build a stronger fed cattle industry in South Dakota.
The percentage of cattle that are raised in South Dakota versus the ones that are fed here seems to be disproportionately low. If we want to change that, if we want to change that culture and the economic impact that it has in South Dakota, we have to start with better training and creating a culture where that becomes a part of our knowledge base and something that we learn at an early age.
We really want to build up that feeding industry in the state of South Dakota, and it's a need that I think the industry in our state has identified and been working on, but it's a little bit challenging. We have some really good things going on in our state that are favorable to cattle feeding, in that we have a relatively low corn basis. We've got farmer feeders who have basically a captive feed supply, and they need to market that feed through cattle. And so in order to do that, we need people who understand the cattle business end of it so that they can take that pen of cattle, get them to gain and grow and finish and be marketable at the end point. And at the same point in time, we want them to be profitable so they can stay in the business, right? And so we thought that this was a really great way to do that.
I think the next generation is obviously very important in South Dakota because we are so sparsely populated outside of 3 or 4 metro areas. And I use the metro area term pretty loosely. And so to keep our industry vibrant and to keep our industry viable in South Dakota is obviously the most important thing to cattle production, but we also really see it as a huge benefit to community survival in a very rural state.
Participants in the Fed Cattle Challenge had ownership of 3 head of cattle and were given an in-depth look at all aspects of the cattle feeding industry.
We wanted to be able to give young people the experience of looking at what it takes to really run a feed yard and all of the things that they have to take into consideration when they're doing that, because we really want to generate the next generation of feedlot owners and operators. because when you look at the people who are willing to do that, I think that pool is relatively small. And then the knowledge, where do they get that really to start into it? And so all of the students that were in the program owned 3 head of cattle in that particular feedlot pen. And so then they got the billing information every couple of weeks to look at and see, this is what it really takes to own these cattle, and these are the management things that we have to think about. You know, we've had students who have maybe a little bit of cow-calf experience or maybe some really limited feeding experience. And so this was able to really give them a broader picture of what the industry looks like. And I think that that was extremely valuable to them. And again, having that experience on their resume for those feedlot owners and operators as they go looking for help, I think will be really a great thing for those students.
At the conclusion of the program, awards were given to the top 4 participants during the South Dakota Cattlemen's Foundation Primetime Gala. Interest from the industry has been positive and will keep the program going strong.
The response to the project has been fantastic, and we asked those students when they were done to give us a little bit of feedback to see if we needed to change direction a little bit or what things that we could refine and do better. And the feedback was just really excellent, that they thought that having that money up front and that stake in the game really made it very real for them. And so that was a really positive thing. And our response by the feedlot owners and managers in the state has also been fantastic. They love to see that there's students who are taking an interest, who are going to have some real world experience, who are going to have a little bit better knowledge of, oh wow, this is what it takes to manage all of that.
It's great that there's this much excitement and enthusiasm in year 5, but I know that we're building a longer legacy behind this, something that we see multi-generation in the future.
From South Dakota, I'm Kevin Ochsner, reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Still ahead on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll check in with Baxter Black, and next we'll take you to the Kansas State Stocker Field Day. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Grass is the center of our universe. So everything revolves around that. We've got to have a grass program that we can count on and plan on. What we need is an effective herbicide that can kill the weeds. That's what we need to sustain us, to keep us growing, to keep us prospering. We grow our own cows. We like selling them, not buying them. I'm Tommy Brandenberger, and along with my wife, we're cow-calf producers.
When it comes to cattle producer education, we don't know when COVID-19 restrictions will be lifted enough to allow us to gather and resume normal activities such as field days that have always been a source of valuable information. Hopefully, these opportunities will open up safely sooner rather than later. In the meantime, we take a look back to last fall and one of the outstanding annual field days hosted by Kansas State University. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter tells us this field day was focused on education for beef stocker operators.
Each fall, over the past 2 decades, the Beef Stocker Unit at Kansas State University puts on a special field day where they share the latest research developments in the program.
The KSU Beef Stocker Field Day is an opportunity for us to illustrate the results that we have generated from our research, as well as to bring in speakers that address a multitude of topics that are relevant for our beef stocker producers.
Educational sessions during the field day touch on topics in the areas of marketing, nutrition, animal health, and technology. The goal is to give producers the most accurate and up-to-date information to help them get the best performance from their operations.
What we're really trying to look at is relevance, okay? What is impacting our producers today? What could possibly impact them into the future? And what kind of answers do we have at our disposal to help them out with that? So we try to keep them right on the cutting edge that they have that cutting edge ability above and beyond any other producer, hopefully within the United States, which really helps Kansas beef producers really lead the way.
The producers that do attend the K-State Beef Stalker Field Day appreciate the opportunity, the exchange of ideas, the opportunity to hear cutting edge information, be it the Outlook report that's provided by one of our very own in the Department of Ag Economics. And then we also bring in a variety of topics pertaining to beef cattle health, nutrition, management aspects, all that are relevant for backgrounding and beef stalker calves.
The Kansas State Beef Stalker Field Day is our biggest event of the year. It's just our chance to get to show off what we do here. The networking's awesome. So many producers come in, you get to meet so many awesome people and get those connections and get to see what's new out there.
It's kind of a hallmark event, you know, in a 12-month period of time for stalker people that in the stalker cattle business in the state of Kansas, and some come out of state. Very seldom have I ever been here when I didn't pick up some important information.
Kansas State has one of the largest animal science departments in the United States, and the Beef Stalker Unit is one of several field research facilities at this world-renowned land-grant university.
K-State's really blessed with a whole array of livestock facilities, research facilities, on-campus lab facilities to support the research efforts. And so those centers serve research, but they also serve things like today, which is really outreach, education, and sharing the research here at the Beef Stalker Unit.
The Beef Stalker Unit here at Kansas State University is comprised of almost 1,200 acres. We have facilities to receive high-risk long-haul calves. We also have native grass pastures, which allow us to do double stock, intensively grazed studies once a year. It also allows us to conduct producer educational events and opportunities. So it's fairly close to campus, and it allows us to really accommodate our goals at Kansas State University.
I want folks around the nation to look at Kansas State University and realize that we're leading the way into the future for our beef industry to increase our efficiency, our productivity, our well-being, everything incorporated into one. That means a lot to me.
Land-grant universities like Kansas State are a key resource for farmers and ranchers to get valuable technical assistance, educational outreach, and hands-on instruction.
It's important for producers to look at all sources of information, but what land-grant universities provide are unbiased information and research reports that are generated using controlled studies in a fair environment to properly evaluate various treatments that are being evaluated.
The best unbiased information sources is at land-grant universities, which is represented by professors at universities, in this case K-State, extension workers in the field. And so to me, yes, you can fact check things, but then if you want them to help sort through the garbage and the truth, those are the people you need to talk to.
From the KSU Beef Stalker Field Day in Manhattan, Kansas, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
No doubt cattle producer education is important, but it's become nearly impossible to gather in person, at least right now. Fortunately, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is a leader in providing multiple virtual learning opportunities online. One great option is the Cattlemen's College online campus, which offers more than 100 educational seminars just for these cattle producers. These are the online version of the outstanding Cattlemen's College sessions sponsored by Zoetis that have taken place each year at the Cattle Industry Convention. To get started, just go to ncba.org and click on the Producers tab. Another free online resource is the Cattlemen's Webinar Series. The online library includes a wide variety of timely topics with expert insights and valuable advice. Recent webinars have focused on dealing with stressful times in the farming and ranching community, as well as feeder cattle health and much more. Coming up next, we'll check in with the cowboy poet Baxter Black. There's more to come on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen just ahead.
At Leachman Cattle, we're committed to building more profitable cattle. As a third-generation seed stock producer, our family has been in this business for over 80 years. Today, we have the best technology ever to build more profitable cattle. Our dollar profit index is a leader in the industry to help you balance all the traits that drive your bottom line. Give us a call or go to www.leachman to learn more.
We know you're up before the dawn because the cattle rise before the sun. And you spend long hours in the saddle because the herd isn't always over the next rise. And you care for the land because you know it takes care of your family. And we know you do great work. And it's time to tell that story to the marketplace. IMI Global is here to help you do just that.
Lately, I've been packing a GPS when I'm checking cows. Now I can find my way back to the horse trailer. But the GPS in rent cars with all the streets and highways just turns my blood cold. My friends Jim and Steve and their wives rented a big SUV. They planned to tour New Mexico and take in the side roads and see the sights. The vehicle came complete with a GPS that talked. "Great," said the Lewis and Clark of the Pecos Wilderness. "We can set our course and not get lost."
Welcome to the All-Star Transgender Find a Fool Anywhere Global Positioning Satellite Device. My name is Charlotte, but you may call me Charlotte. What is your name?
Jim.
Chimp, it's nice to meet you.
No, Jim.
Chin is to meet you.
Jim.
Slim.
Jim.
Chim.
Okay. And I'm his friend Steve.
Sleeve.
Steve.
Sleaze.
Streeze.
Sneeze.
You win.
Okay, Skim and Cheese, where would you like to go?
Truchas.
I searching. Is it in the state of Santa Fe in Argentina?
No, it is Truchas, north of Santa Fe, near Chamayo on the reservation.
We can make reservations.
No, not Argentina. You
do not have razor voice. I am chirping for a hotel on the village of Tostado.
No, not Tostado, not Truchas, but yes, I mean Truchas near Santa Fe in New Mexico.
Please do not shout. You will override my audio. Are you driving?
Can't you even tell if we're driving, you two-bit harebrained bug psychic? I'm pulling out onto the highway.
Whoa, Sleeve and Cheeve, you've gone too far. You're past.
Shut your trap, you two-bit jabbering satellite signpost!
Do not yell at the monitor. You are 250 meters beyond the turn to Argentina. Please go back if you do not wish to go to Tostado.
We're going to Truchas, you incompetent map snatcher.
You have taken the wrong turn. If you continue at this speed, you will...
Now, which way is Taos? This is Baxter Black from out there.
We didn't just design the 6M tractors with you in mind. We designed them with you by our side. The new 6M tractors from John Deere, reimagined by you, for you. With improved visibility, better maneuverability, and more ways to customize, so you get everything you need and nothing you don't. Experience the new 6M at your local John Deere dealer.
Welcome back to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Over the past few weeks, we've had to adapt our program to bring you news and information in a time of severe crisis. And we've shared information and viewpoints in new ways as the COVID-19 pandemic has unfolded. Now, as summer nears, we'll continue bringing you updates as often as necessary. But over the next few weeks, we'll focus more on sharing some of our favorite stories, outstanding producer profiles, and valuable producer education that'll help you improve and strengthen your operation. Now, let's take a little time to enjoy and appreciate life on farms and ranches all across the U.S. with this week's Legacy Photos. Why not send us your farm or ranch photos? You can email them to c2c@beef.org or message them to us on the Cattlemen to Cattlemen Facebook page, and we may use them on a future episode. Now, just a word of encouragement as we wrap up this week's show. As I visited with NCBA President Marty Smith and reflected on the history of his family's cattle operation in Florida, I was reminded that the cattle business in Florida and America is actually older than our nation itself. And I know many of you, like the Smiths, have been on the same land for generations. In the days and weeks ahead, I hope you'll remind yourself of those deep, strong roots. After all, a tree like this, with strong roots, can withstand most any storm, including the flood we experienced back in 2013. The river raged around it, but this tree stood firm. And so it is with the people in the beef industry. We have strong roots, grounded in faith, family, grit, and a whole lot of determination. And it's those roots that'll strengthen us, sustain us, and hold us firm in the days and months ahead. And one single root won't do it. It takes a network of roots to secure a tree this size. So let's stick together. Let's work together. And let's make sure the tree we call the U.S. beef industry continues bearing fruit and providing shade for generations to come. From all of us at NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, thank you for watching. We hope you have a safe, enjoyable, and productive summer.